Are you lost in the chaotic whirlwind of day-to-day busyness? Do you yearn for a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in your life? Welcome to Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose, the podcast dedicated to empowering women on their journey of self-discovery and finding their true purpose through their own story. I'm your host, Brenda Simmons. Welcome, my friends, to the podcast. Today, I have Lorin Smith on the podcast, and I'm going to let her introduce herself because she's got a really interesting story that I think will benefit so many of you who are listening. And so, Lorin, will you please take a moment and just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey of how you got to where you are right now?
Sure, of course. Thank you for having me. It's such a treat. I'm also a podcast host, so I'm usually on your side of the screen, so it's fun to be interviewed. Like she said, my name is Lorin Smith. I am from here in Utah. I'm from Saratoga Springs. That's where me and my young family live. I'm married and I have two young daughters. And I live with celiac disease and I live with type 1 diabetes. So I have a couple of health struggles and trials that have kind of shaped me into who I am now. And it's been a long time. It's been a long journey of trying to figure out how to live and thrive. So I have lived with celiac disease for 8 years. This July, I hit my 8-year anniversary of living with celiac disease. And then I'm 30. Well, my birthday's next week, so I'll be 34 next week. And two and a half years ago, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 31. So that was pretty intense and rocked my world because I just never expected I would get diagnosed with type 1 diabetes this late in life. So I have had to figure out how to navigate life and find joy in my life, living with food sensitivities and diabetes. And I'm the type of person that I try to make lemonade out of lemons. And I've always been that way. I've always tried to have a positive outlook on life and tried to turn my trials into something good. And I feel like I've done that. So I share on social media, I share in my community of ways that you can just turn your life around and find joy even when you have health struggles or you're different. I definitely feel like I'm different. But I still have a fulfilling, joyful life, even though I have restrictions in my life.
Thank you so much for explaining that for us. So I wanted to have you on the podcast just because I think it's so fascinating that you had these diagnoses so late in your life. So I think I guess I feel like typically we learn of things like that when you're a child. So I'm curious, were you very sickly as a child? How did that process go? First we'll do celiac and then go into the diabetes. So how'd that process go of discovery and what were you feeling before you actually received both of those diagnoses?
Yeah. So yes, I always was the sick child. My mom had 5 kids and I was always the child that always had something wrong. I always had a headache or I always had a stomach ache or I always had something to complain about with my health. And, being one of 5 children, I think that my mom was just like, oh, Lauren's just our problem child.
It's just the way she is, right?
And as early as 9 years old, I started having symptoms. So I started dealing with headaches around the age of 9. And then at the age of 12, I was put onto an antacid because I had acid reflux and heartburn at 12 years old. And so basically all through my young adult years, my teenage years, I just masked all my symptoms with medication because no doctor ever tested me for anything besides, oh, you just have acid reflux, so here's an antacid. So, and then on top of that, masking my headaches with medication. So I was just always taking drugs to mask my symptoms. And no doctor ever was like, let's find the root problem here. It just was never discussed. This was in the late 90s, early 2000s that I was a tween and teen. And then when I was around 17, I started noticing that I was having issues with dairy. So I cut out dairy when I was about 17 years old. And then years kind of went on and I just was like, I just live with chronic health problems. And I kind of that just became my norm. And there was damage being done constantly because of how much acid reflux I was having. So my esophagus was being damaged. And I served a mission for my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I was just chronically sick on my mission. And I was just masking, again, just masking my symptoms. And then I ended up coming home early from my mission because I just had so many health problems. And I had found a doctor that was like, we need to do a esophagus repair surgery. But even then, at that time, like no diagnosis of anything. Let's just repair all the damage that has been done. And then it wasn't until me and my husband had been married for about a year in 2016. So I was 26 years old. I just was so sick, went into the emergency room one night and they were like, you have multiple bleeding ulcers in your stomach. And they're like, why would you have ulcers? Like, what are you taking? What medications are you on? And I was like, well, I take Excedrin migraine every day for a headache. Like I just got headaches every single day. And I would never connect headaches with celiac disease. Like you just don't connect. You think it's all gut related. But of course, my gut was so damaged from just taking medications for like over a decade, right? And in the emergency room, they did a biopsy and they called me the next day and said, you have celiac disease. And I said, well, what is that? I had never even heard of it before. I did not know what it was. And kind of went to an appointment to a GI doctor. He gave me a pamphlet and said I needed to eat gluten-free and sent me on my way. And I wasn't given any
That
education.
was it?
Oh, yeah,
Oh
that
my
was it.
goodness.
So it was all on me to figure it out, which is so daunting and so overwhelming. And in 2016, the options were not what they are now, right? Like we have so many great resources available now, and social media is a great resource, but that just wasn't what social media was like in 2016. Like I had Instagram, but like I was still using sepia tone and I was still using, like it was just like occasionally posting photos of me and my husband. Like it just wasn't like a resource like it is now. And so years of trial and error and lots of tears and lots of wasting money and throwing things in the garbage can. And I kind of learned like what was good, what was worth the money, what restaurants were safe. And that took me a long time to figure it out because I was doing it alone, just because there weren't resources. And then after a couple of years, I was like, I want to be the person who bridges the gap between diagnosis and thriving. And that shouldn't take 2 years. That should take 6 months max. Like you should be able to have resources at your fingertips. And now, luckily, we do, right? Because of social media and because of just how great the internet can be. But I just didn't want anyone else's experience to be like mine I didn't want people to feel alone because I felt so alone and it was so hard. And so I started an Instagram account back in 2018 after I had been like, I know what I'm doing. Like, I know what's good. I know how to travel. I know how to advocate for myself. I know how to do all of this. But in between those 2 years, it was like constantly getting sick, constantly getting cross-contaminated, constantly having flare-ups because I didn't know anything because all I was given was a pamphlet, right?
Right.
And so I started sharing on social media in 2018, and it was mostly just like, here's the groceries that I buy. These are the restaurants that I eat at here in Utah County. And it kind of snowballed into what it is today, which is just a great resource for people who live with celiac disease or need to eat gluten-free for one reason or another. And there are dozens and dozens of reasons to eat gluten-free.
Well, and I know for myself, like I certainly don't have celiac. I know people who are, and I know what a struggle it has been for them. And I also feel like there's this, how do you say it? Like, it's kind of like people who are vegan, they'll tell you they're vegan, right?
Yeah,
And so I feel like it's perceived as, oh, you're just somebody
it's
who
just a
doesn't eat.
preference.
It's a
Yeah,
preference, exactly. And I don't think people really understand the difference between the preference and the need. And
right.
so in your research, have you done a lot of the research as to what celiac disease actually is? Like what
Yes,
is it about it? So will you explain that to us so that
yes,
we
of
understand
course.
the biology behind it?
Yes. So a normal person who doesn't have celiac disease, inside your digestive tract, in your small intestine, you have these little, kind of like little creatures that are like little octopus legs in your small intestine, and their job is to absorb nutrients. So they're like these little tentacles that are meant to pull in and absorb nutrients when you eat your food, right? Um, when you have celiac disease, it's an autoimmune disease. So if you haven't been diagnosed, so let's scenario here, you haven't been diagnosed, but you have celiac disease, these little villi, their job is to pull in nutrients. But if you've been eating gluten, those villi get damaged. So then they're like blunted and they can't absorb nutrients. So then all sorts of problems start happening because you're not absorbing your vitamins, your minerals, you become nutrient deficient. It starts affecting all your other systems, your cardiovascular system, your muscular system, your lymphatic system. It snowballs into affecting, we need our nutrients, right? So when we eat gluten, our body recognizes it as a foreign subject and it attacks the small intestine lining. So going on a gluten-free diet and removing gluten from your diet allows those villi to heal back to their original state where they're doing their job correctly. So we want our villi to be fully healed. We want them fully functioning, but every time we're exposed to gluten, they get blunted and they get damaged. Our own body attacks our intestinal lining. So that's why it's so serious that someone with celiac disease takes it so seriously because, if our villi get damaged, that can take anywhere from 8 weeks to 16 weeks for them to be fully healed again. So it's a long process of dealing with symptoms after you get glutened because your body is in fight mode, right? It's been attacked and it needs to heal, and healing takes time, right? Our tissues have to repair, the gut lining has to repair. And if you're getting small amounts of cross-contamination on a regular basis, you're constantly blunting and starting back over from ground zero of healing. So it's very important that you follow a strict gluten-free diet when you have celiac disease. Now, there are other people who eat gluten-free for other reasons that aren't autoimmune related or celiac disease related, but still need to be taken just as seriously because there's people who have gluten sensitivity, which, it's affecting their mood, it's affecting their hormone imbalance. Like there's a lot of problems because gluten is an inflammatory food. So, there's people who have Hashimoto's, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, and they're told to go on an anti-inflammatory diet to help with their symptoms. And gluten is the number one inflammatory food. So yes, there are millions of reasons, not millions, but there's lots of reasons to eat gluten-free. But people who have celiac disease, it's an autoimmune response. So our body attacks the intestinal lining and damages it, and then we cannot absorb our nutrients, which then leads to lots of other health complications.
And can you tell if you accidentally eat gluten?
Oh, yes.
What's the difference for you?
It's different for everyone. That's what's so unique about celiac disease. There's like over 200 symptoms linked to celiac disease, and they're not all GI related. They can be skin related. They can be, again, headache related. They can be neurologically related. So some people will get serious brain fog. They'll feel just like so lethargic, no energy. And it's because their body is in attack mode, right? There's the foreign substance that's been brought into their body, and their body is like, alert, alert, alert. Like, we need to figure out how to deal with this. And some people will have diarrhea. Some people will have vomiting. Some people will have like neurological, where they just can't think straight. Their brain is clouded. They just don't have the energy. Skin issues, rashes, hives. Like, there's just so many other symptoms related to it. Numbness, tingling in your extremities. It's crazy. The list is huge. So if you have a symptom like this, but you're like, well, my stomach's never upset, like, don't rule out celiac disease. Like, there are other issues that come from celiac disease because it's a gut related issue. And if your gut is out of balance, it's going to affect all the other systems. So for me, if I eat gluten, if I get consumption of it, like, I will be throwing up for like 4 to 6 hours. My body just wants to get rid of it immediately. It recognizes it as a foreign substance, right? And I'll vomit and I'll be really sick, and my stomach will just get into like spasms and knots, and I'm just kind of living on the bathroom floor for the rest of the evening. And then headache the next day, lethargic, no energy. Usually 48 hours later, I'll feel like, okay, I can function normally again. But those are just the symptoms that are happening right then and there. But what's happening internally to my intestines is going to last weeks until my body can repair itself again. So everyone's a little bit different. Some people, their effects will last them the whole, like, a week. They'll just feel like, I am not well again. They'll have severe bloating. They could have breakout in acne. Like, there's just so many other symptoms related to it. And so that's why I tell people, like, I'll have friends say like, oh, I always have this or I always have that. And I'm like, get tested for celiac disease. Like, what's the harm in getting tested? Because that could be linked. Mouth sores is very common. If people get a lot of canker sores, mouth sores, cold sores, that's also related to celiac disease. So don't rule it out. Even if you don't have stomach issues, it could be something else.
And that, thank you so much for sharing what that looks like for you, because, you know, it helps you to understand the long-term effects. Like it's not just a, oh, I'm sick for an hour. It's a, this
Oh,
will
yeah.
last. I will be sick for several days to several weeks, right? And
Right.
so it helps you to understand why people who have celiac are so adamant and so careful about what they eat and asking
Oh,
and
yeah.
petitioning for themselves. And so I think that's super it helps us to understand where they're coming from. Fast forward then a few years, and now
Mhm.
you've got this diabetes 1 diagnosis. So what
Yeah.
did that look like for you?
So I have diabetes in my family, and my brother has type 1, and I have 6 first cousins with type 1 diabetes. So I'm very aware of what type 1 diabetes looks like, but I never thought it would happen to me, right? So
Especially
when
as an adult, how
yeah,
often does that happen? Because I thought that was one that usually comes up as a child.
it's becoming more and more common because we're just in like a rising autoimmune disease world.
Right.
And so it's not as uncommon for an adult to get diagnosed. Like I'm in Facebook groups for diabetes, and so many of us were adults when we were diagnosed.
Interesting.
Like my brother was diagnosed at age 26, and my other cousin was diagnosed at age 25. But I have other cousins who were diagnosed, at like 6 or 12 so it's different for everyone, but I just wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. Is it like a switch that happens? Or is it like celiac where you had it your whole life,
It's
right?
a trigger. It's a trigger that triggers an autoimmune disease. So if you have the genetic markers for any autoimmune disease, it can be triggered, basically turned on at any time. So I have the genetic marker for type 1 diabetes because it's in my family genes. And anything can trigger an autoimmune disease. So I think COVID triggered mine in 2021. And shortly after COVID, like I got the COVID vaccination. And then shortly after the COVID vaccination, it was either the vaccination or getting COVID itself. Within 2 months of that, I was having all the telltale symptoms. I was having excessive peeing, excessive thirst, like could not drink enough water, could not get enough juice, soda. Like I just was like constantly thirsty. Um, and hungry, but not like I would eat, but I'm like, I'm still not full, like just constantly trying to like feed myself and drink, but never being satiated. And so then like severe exhaustion, like, I mean, and I have young kids, right? So I'm like, well, maybe I'm just so exhausted because I'm up at night with my baby. And um, I was kind of justifying all the symptoms that I was having because I was like,
You didn't want it,
I'm not
right?
gonna get this. Yeah.
Right.
So just severe exhaustion, sleeping like 10 hours a night and still needing an hour nap in the middle of the day. Excessive weight loss. Like in 1 month, I lost 13 pounds. Just my body
Wow.
was just like dropping weight. I was so tired. I was so fatigued. I started losing my vision. And that's when I was like, something is up. Like my phone is blurry to me, this close to my face. Like the words are blurry.
Wow.
And so I called my brother and I just said, "Hey, I'm having these weird symptoms and I've been having this and this and this." And he was like, "Lorin, go to the emergency room right now." And I was like, "I'm fine." I'm like, "I'm sure I'm just tired." And I'm sure, I just was like, "No, I'm fine." And he was like, "Please go to an urgent care tonight. Like you need to go." And I was just like, I'm okay. Like I feel okay. And at the time, a lady in my neighborhood had a type 1 diabetic daughter. And so I went to her house and I said, "Hey, do you have a meter? I could check my blood sugar." And I checked my blood sugar and the meter read high. And I was like, I called my brother back and I said, "The meter's reading high." And he said, "That means it's too high for the meter to even read. Like it
And
can't read how high your blood sugar is because it's too high. Like you have
that's
to go to the
scary.
hospital." Yes.
Yeah.
And this was like a month after I had started having symptoms. So I just was kind of like thinking it was going to go away, not thinking it was diabetes. So I ended up going to the urgent care. and they tested my urine and they were like, you have ketones in your urine. Like, we need to test your blood sugar. And as soon as they said that, I was like, I just
Yeah.
knew what that meant. And they came in and they told me my blood sugar was like 620 or something, which is like almost diabetic ketoacidosis, which you can die from.
Wow.
And I just like when they told me, they said, you have diabetes. And I was just like, okay, but I was at an urgent care and they're like, you need to go to the ER like right now. Like, we need to either call an ambulance or your husband needs to come pick you up and you need to go to the ER. So I went to the ER and they diagnosed me with type 1 there. And that was just like, I sat in that waiting room, or I sat in the room at the urgent care and just sobbed. And the sweet nurse just held me like she was my mom. She just held me and I just sobbed because I knew what that meant, because I have a brother with type 1 and I have family members with type 1. Like, I know that this is a lifelong diagnosis. There's no cure. And my life is going to look so different from here on out. And maybe it's just because I had had celiac for so long and I had adapted to that. Like, I just was like, I can handle celiac. Like, I'm used to that. Like, I know how to eat gluten free. I know how to advocate for myself. But I'm like, what is my life going to look like? I just felt like my quality of life was just going to go so downhill. And I was so angry. I was so angry that this happened to me, because I'm like, I don't deserve this. I already deal with celiac disease. Like, I don't deserve this. I can't handle this. Like, I just can't do it. And I remember I FaceTimed my brother, and of course, I'm like spotted red. Like, I've just been sobbing. And I FaceTimed my brother, and as soon as he saw my face, he's like, no, please tell me no, no, no. Like, please tell me no. And I'm like, no, I got diagnosed with type 1. And he was just like, no, of all people that shouldn't be getting this, like, why would you get this? Like, you are like, any food related disease is so hard.
Right.
So anyway, I was in the hospital for 3 days trying to get my blood sugar down and diabetes education and learning everything about diabetes. And, it's been 2.5 years now, and I finally feel like I've got it under control. I'm managing it better. But I think that any autoimmune disease that requires a drastic 180 in your life and learning and educating yourself, it takes time to learn how to manage. And I do think that it's interesting because for the first couple of years, I was like, which is harder, like celiac or type 1? And for me, type 1 is significantly harder. Like, type 1 never sleeps. Like, diabetes never sleeps. It affects your life 24/7, every minute of the hour, every hour of the day. Whereas celiac, like, I'll go days without it affecting me, because if I'm just home having my regular routine, like, I'm not going out, I'm not traveling, I'm not eating out at restaurants. Like, when I'm at home, totally manageable. But type 1 just, it never sleeps. It's always there. There's always alerts on my phone. I always have to know what my blood sugar is. I'm always correcting my blood sugar. I'm always fixing a high blood sugar or a low blood sugar. And I finally feel like here I am 2.5 years later. I know how to manage it better, but it's still not easy. Like, it's just a lot harder than celiac disease for sure.
Did you feel relief at finally just knowing this is why this answers all my questions? You know,
Yes. I was so grateful for my celiac diagnosis. Actually, it changed my life 180 for the better, because all my symptoms went away and all my chronic health problems went away because I found the root cause of all my problems. So that was like a huge blessing. Celiac disease was like, finally, I know what's
right.
going to make me feel better. And it did. It was like within 2 weeks of going gluten free, no gut symptoms, no headaches, no skin rashes. Like, my symptoms cleared up within about 2 weeks. And the only time I ever have a symptom from celiac disease is if I get cross-contaminated, which is a very rare occasion because I'm so adamant about taking care of my health and asking questions and being an advocate for myself. So that doesn't happen on a regular basis. So celiac disease was definitely a blessing and a welcomed diagnosis. Yeah.
So how did your eating habits change from the celiac, that diet, the celiac diet versus the type 1 diabetes diet?
Um, I mean, luckily I had already learned how to read labels. So that was something that
Right.
wasn't foreign to me, right? Like, I already knew what to look for when reading labels. But then it came down to, okay, now I know what to look for in an ingredient label that might have gluten in it. I know how to do that. But now it's like, okay, how many carbohydrates are in this? How much added sugar is in this? What is the carb to protein ratio? And then how do I take insulin for that? So because I'm gluten free, a lot of gluten free things are higher carb because they're using
Right.
flour or different flours that are higher carb. So people who are gluten-free and type 1 diabetic, which the community is huge because they're sister autoimmune diseases, a lot of people get diagnosed with type 1 first and then celiac disease next.
Really?
I'm
That's
I'm the
interesting.
opposite. Yeah. But it's more common for someone to get type 1 first and then within 6 months to a year find celiac disease. They're very linked and common to be diagnosed together. So I'm grateful that I had that background knowledge of reading labels because it made it easier. But the reading labels is just a part of both of those diseases, knowing what to look for when you're reading an ingredient label. And I'm a one-on-one gluten-free lifestyle coach. So I started a coaching business a couple of years ago because I saw the need for people. They needed help. They had the same experience as me where they would go to a doctor's appointment, be told they're diagnosed with celiac. Here's a pamphlet. You need to eat a strict gluten-free diet and send them on their way. And then it's like, but what exactly does that mean? Like, there's more to just eating gluten free than just looking at a label. Like there's hidden gluten in so many things, and there's skills that you need to develop as someone with celiac disease because you need to know how to ask questions, what questions to ask at a restaurant, how to be prepared, how to educate your family, how to educate your friends, how to have trust in other people cooking for you. Like a doctor's not going to teach you those things because that doctor doesn't live with celiac disease themselves. So there's all these nuanced things that come with living with celiac disease. I feel like type 1 is more like, okay, this is all on me. No one else can do anything to help me with type 1. It's all on me and knowing what my blood sugar is, knowing how much insulin I need to give. And if my husband needs to know I'm high or low, I will tell him, right? But it's all very much individual. Whereas celiac disease is so much broader. We have barbecues we go to social events, we travel, we have family dinners. There's just so many things that surround around food that can cause a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress because we don't want to get sick, especially when we're on vacation. Like you're meant to go have this fun vacation with your family or your friends, and you get sick on day one, you are not
It's
going to
done.
enjoy the rest of your vacation, right?
Right.
So there's more education, I feel like, in the celiac space. Of course, there's education that has to be done with type 1. And you usually go to a diabetes education appointment, you have your endocrinologist, they're there to help you. But celiac disease is a lot more like, okay, I have to learn these advocacy skills. I have to be bold. I have to be an extrovert, right? And for a lot of people, it's like, oh, I'd rather not bother anyone about it. I'd rather not speak up about it. I don't want to seem annoying. I don't want to seem like I'm high maintenance. But I've come to learn that like you have to develop those skills. If you're gluten free, you have to have those skills. And practice and practice and practice is going to make you feel more confident doing that. But as a one-on-one coach, that's something that we go over drastically and spend a lot of time in our coaching calls is to give you the skills and role play and practice advocating for yourself. Because when you sit down at a restaurant, if you don't have the courage to be like, okay, what are your protocols for someone who's gluten free? Does the staff change their gloves? Do you have a separate prep station? Do you have a dedicated fryer? Like, there's all these questions that you have to ask. And if you've never asked those questions before, you're going to get frozen and you're going to be scared at a restaurant unless you already have these good speaking skills, right? And a lot of people need to develop those skills. So that's something that I do in my coaching calls is help people have the confidence to stick up for themselves so that they can enjoy life, so that they can eat well, and so that they don't get sick, right? So there's a huge need. There was a huge need for that. And I saw that there was a gap in diagnosis and education, and I wanted to fill that gap.
Well, way to fill that gap. I think that's really amazing. So, can we talk about some of those skills? So, let's just talk briefly about labels because labels are so misleading. Like there's so many, I mean, you just take colors, right? Or
Mhm.
flavorings. Like that's they're
Yeah.
and all of those things are under a lot of different names. And that's all very scientific and it's, how do you read a label?
So there is a really awesome like organizations that can give a certified gluten-free label. So there are certain symbols that you can look for on foods, and if something has the certified gluten-free label, you know it's been tested for less than 20 parts per million, which is considered celiac safe. So there are people who maybe have a wheat allergy. That's different than celiac disease, right? Something has to be 100% wheat free. Whereas for celiac disease, it has to be less than 20 parts per million. So looking for the certified gluten-free label is going to be like your first step in you're just diagnosed. Okay, let's look for those labels. Let's try the food. Let's try different things. And gluten-free living is very expensive, but I always recommend like maybe splurge and buy a bunch of different things because that's the only way you're going to know what brands you like. And I'll give you in my calls, like I'll give you all my top favorite brands, but we talk about, okay, there's the certified gluten-free label that you want to look for, but you don't always have to buy something that has the certified gluten-free label. The certified gluten-free label is um, a comfort, but it also is upcharged. So because if something has a certified
Mm,
gluten-free label, it means that company went through the measures of getting it certified, which costs them money, which then makes us pay an upcharge on certified gluten-free things. But if you know how to read a label and you know what to look for and you don't see any gluten containing ingredients, you could buy that product, right? There are apps that you can scan the barcode of a product and you can see if it says, sometimes the app will say may contain gluten and then it will tell you the ingredient because of this, right? Um,
right.
there's the certified gluten-free label. There's just learning how to read a label and knowing where hidden gluten is hidden. So like the biggest places where gluten is hidden is barley malt, malt extract, um, nat natural flavoring, um, and sometimes it's just things that you didn't even think gluten was in. Like couscous has gluten in it. Oats can have gluten in it if they're not certified gluten-free oats. So like oats typically get grown next to wheat and then they're processed on the same equipment. And then you're going to find wheat kernels in your Quaker oatmeal. So you have to buy certified gluten-free products of some things, but then other things, if you know how to read a label and you feel confident, maybe you use the app to scan it, or maybe you have like a cheat sheet. Like I send my clients like a cheat sheet so that they can save it to their phone in a folder of all the gluten-free stuff that they need so that they can look at this list of like, here are all the main words that you're looking for. And so that when they're looking at something new, they can go, okay, this doesn't have anything in it, but let me just cross-reference and make sure that this list that Lorin sent me doesn't have anything in it. So I'm really there to be like to hold your hand so that you can figure it out. And it's going to take some time, but like the goal is less than 6 months, right? I don't want it to take 2 years for someone to feel better or to figure it out or to feel confident in it. Like I want it to take about 6 months. 6 months is pretty like that seems like that's such a long time before I start feeling better, but there's a lot of education that has to happen. There's a
Yeah.
lot of trial and error that has to happen. There's a lot of experiences that you have to go through that I can't give you that experience, right? You have to go to a family function. You have to go to a potluck. You have to have these experiences to be like, okay, that didn't work. What am I going to do differently for next time, right? I can't give my clients life experiences, but I can tell them mine so that they can know what to look for when they go to their next social event.
Well, and those
Um,
experiences include not just eating, but also advocating. And
yes.
and so it's not just a physical issue, it's emotional and it's social and right. And so you have to
Yes.
really consider all of that as you're making that change. And one thing that I have found is when you are making a change and other people aren't doing that with you, there can be a lot of resentment that you experience in
Yeah.
other people as well, and I realize, and I guess I've seen this with people who decide, oh, I'm going to go gluten free, and then everybody has to conform to that, right? And I'm saying that totally broadly, right? What's interesting though is I find that so many people can benefit from what those who are gluten free are learning.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Right? So what have you found within that realm?
Um, well, one for me, being gluten-free has taught me so much empathy. Like, because I am this way, and when somebody is considerate enough to make changes for me, one, I feel so grateful that someone's willing to do that. But now also, because I'm in this food allergy, quote unquote, world, I'm so conscious and I'm so aware of other people's needs. And so, like, if we're going to a birthday party or if I'm having my daughter's friends are coming over, I always ask the parents, do the kids have any food allergies? Is there anything I need to be aware of? Because I want other people to have a good time. So I feel like it's taught me a lot of empathy, and I think it's taught my husband a lot of empathy. My friends are very much more aware, and I have specific friends that I can count on and rely on, and they'll say, like, we cleaned the whole kitchen before we made this meal. We made sure there was no gluten in ingredients. And I have so many friends who want to cook for us, and they'll send me pictures. Hey, this is what I'm using. Can you make sure that this is gluten-free? And they'll send me the back of the label so that I can read it and confirm, yes, you can use this. And I think it just opens people's eyes to realize, like, oh, wow, like this is much more than just like, oh, Lauren needs to eat gluten-free. It's like now my friends and my family members are much more aware, and then that makes them more empathetic people, right? Like, I think it teaches empathy. And like, we had a neighborhood potluck a couple of weeks ago, and I knew that someone was doing like marinated chicken. And I text that neighbor and I said, hey, can you just send me the recipe that you're planning on using to marinate the chicken in? And she sent me a picture, and I said, okay, great, perfect. All those ingredients look safe. And she said, is there anything else that I need to do so that you feel safe eating this? And I said, well, if you wouldn't mind cooking my chicken on tin foil, because I don't know what spices and seasonings have been on your grill before. And
Mm-hmm.
she said, oh, totally. She's like, I'm so glad you told me. I would have never thought of that, you know? And then at the potluck, she was like, I'm learning so much from being your friend. And I'm like, that makes me so happy, because maybe one day your kid will have celiac disease, or maybe one day you have another friend, or maybe one day you have a family member who gets diagnosed with celiac disease, but you knew me. And so now your eyes have been opened more to like what it actually means to serve a friend or family member who's gluten-free.
Well, and it's like you said before, it's not just celiac. It's all of these other things that if you just reduce or eliminate the inflammatory foods
Mm-hmm.
and learn how to really hone in on that your bodies will function a whole lot better.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
So what's like if somebody is like what's the advice that you generally give to people when they're facing, and I know you said earlier, oh, just go get tested, but is there some other kind of advice that you would give to people if they're facing some kind of unknown health related issue?
Start deep diving, doing your research. There's going to be other people sharing somewhere online how changing their diet has changed their lives. I think a lot of people, we're starting to come into a world of like, oh, what we put in our body actually makes a difference. And it's taking time for people to jump onto the bandwagon of realizing, like, we fuel our body by what we eat. And if we eat like crap, we're going to feel like crap. If
Mhm.
we eat well and if we eat balanced, we're going to feel well. We're going to feel balanced. And there's still a lot of people that aren't accepting of that idea. And they're just like, I want to eat whatever I want to eat, and I'm just going to feel like crappy all the time. But there's people sharing their experience of not just celiac disease, but like, let's say you were just diagnosed with lupus, but your doctor just wants to put you on a medication. Does that feel good to you? Does that feel right? Do you feel like maybe there are other options? Like, I have a cousin who was diagnosed with lupus at like 24 years old, and the doctor just wanted to put her on a steroid and on medication. And she just was like, that doesn't feel right to me. I feel like there's something else. And she went 100% dairy free, removed dairy from her diet, and like has reversed almost all of her symptoms and lives
Wow.
symptom free just from removing dairy, which was this inflammatory food that was causing her body specifically flare-ups constantly. So like now she's not on any medications. Now she doesn't take steroids. She just eats dairy free and she feels so much better. So like don't just think that yes, you might get a diagnosis, and I'm not saying that your diagnosis is right or wrong, but if you're given a new diagnosis that seems really overwhelming, but the doctor just wants to put you on a medication, do your research first before you just say, yep, okay, I'm going to be on a medication the rest of my life, because changing what you eat could drastically impact how you feel. And to go gluten-free may seem so overwhelming to people and be like, I can't do that. I can't give up bread. I can't give up this. You're not giving up bread. You're just changing the type of bread that you're eating. You're not giving up pasta. You're just changing the type of pasta that you're eating. Having a mindset shift is huge. And in the beginning for me, I was so like, oh, woe is me. I'm like, my life sucks so bad and everyone should accommodate to me. And why doesn't everyone feel so bad for me? And I was very like down in the dumps, like, and upset, like angry about it for a while. And then when I learned, like, nobody else is thinking the way that I think, nobody else has to worry about this the way that I do. So why should I expect them to worry the way that I do? And I just had to have a mindset shift that I'm like, okay, if I want to have an enjoyable life, that's up to me. It's not up to anybody else. If I want to feel fulfilled, if I want to eat well, if I want to eat delicious, nutritious food, I can, but it's up to me and not expecting everyone else to just like adjust their whole lives because they're not going to, right? They're just, maybe they'll be considerate in situations, but nobody thinks the same way that you think unless you have a food allergy or celiac disease or something like that. So don't just take a doctor's word for a diagnosis and get put on a medication. Do your research and feel what feels best for you. And honestly, ponder about it, pray about it, think about it. Like, okay, are there other things that I can do? Do your research, search the hashtag of whatever your diagnosis was, see what other people are doing, see if other people are finding an anti-inflammatory diet and it's changing their lives, right? There's a lot of great resources out there for people, and you don't like, maybe you'll have that diagnosis forever, but the way that you treat it might look completely different based on the research you do.
And I would also add to that, even if you don't have any kind of symptoms or whatnot, I would suggest try an anti-inflammatory diet. I know when I get off of sugar and gluten, I'm amazed at how much better I feel. And I don't have any specific health issue, but I feel better and I can feel my body that inflammation going down, and it just feels so much better, and I feel like I can move better and I can think better, and so it's really amazing.
Yeah, what we feed ourselves can either heal us or kill us, right?
Yeah,
So I think it's really important to think that way, to change your mindset to be like, food could be the culprit here. And what am I eating? And how can I feel better by what I put in my body?
absolutely. All right, so where can people find you if they want to learn a little bit more about what you provide and how you can help them, and even, how they can eat better?
Yes. So I am on Instagram and I'm on Facebook and I'm on TikTok, all at the same handle, which is at Good Gluten Free Grub. I am located in Utah, and so I share a lot about what I eat in Utah, the restaurants that are safe, places that I eat at. In my link in bio on Instagram, I have a link to show you like where you could sign up for a one-on-one consultation, to join my Facebook group, to listen to my podcast, to trying to think what else is on there. All my discount codes for all the brands that I love and have discounts for, my website that has all of my merchandise and the swag that I sell. And then I also host social events because I know how hard social events can be for people. So I thought I'm going to start a social events fun like event
That's so
company.
fun.
So I do social gatherings that are 100% gluten-free so people can come to them and eat everything and not have to worry or ask questions. And I have an event coming up in August. I'm doing a 100% gluten-free food truck roundup. So it'll be a food truck, food festival night, and everything's gluten-free, and that's here in Lehi, Utah. So you can see all that information on my social media channels. And then my email address is goodglutenfreegrub@gmail. So you can reach me there. You're welcome to DM me or whatever, but I'd love to have you follow along for the fun gluten-free journey that I'm on.
Fantastic. And is your podcast name, does that have the same name as well?
The Good Gluten-Free Grub podcast.
Good. I wanted to make sure people knew what
Yes,
it
and
was
I'm
too.
on Apple and Spotify. So you can listen there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. You were just like all
Oh,
over the place. That's
thank
so fun. I love that.
you.
So you have a special or like a
I've got a code. I've got a
yes,
code
that's
for your
what I was
listeners.
that's what I was looking for. So tell us a little
Yes.
bit about that.
So I have a website. I created a like merchandise line just because I'm like, I want people to feel like they can represent their community and represent themselves, and that this is like a part of their lives that they are proud of because they've come so far. So I just have like t-shirts, hats, sweaters, stickers, and that's all on my website. And the listeners for this podcast can get 10% off by using the code BEYOU in all caps for 10% off all the merchandise. And then if you're local to Utah, there is a 100% gluten-free expo that's coming up in September on September 28th, 27th and 28th. And I'll have a booth there where I'm selling my merchandise as well and advertising about all my events that are coming up too.
Wonderful. Well, Lorin, this was so amazing. You just have a wealth of knowledge about this. And on the one hand, I feel bad that you have to go through all of this, but on the other hand, what a blessing you are to those who now can use the knowledge that you have to help themselves too. So it's interesting
Thank
how we can take
you.
challenges and turn them into blessings. So
I try my best. I try
yes.
my best to turn it into a blessing.
Yes. Well done. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time out on your busy day to talk with me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Isn't she great? Sometimes things happen to us and it's a blessing, right? And just like understanding that she had celiac disease was such a huge blessing. And then there are things that happen to us in our lives where it's devastating. And just like her diagnosis with type 1 diabetes, we always have a choice. We have a choice. Are we going to take that information and take that experience and learn from it and grow from it and try to share our knowledge and our experience with other people and help those who are going through the same thing accomplish happiness as they're going through that experience? Or do we wallow and get depressed? And that choice is always ours. And I love that Lorin has taken this challenge, both of these challenges in her life, and she's learned from it. And what a blessing I don't even have celiac disease and I don't have type 1 diabetes, but I am grateful that she has that knowledge that she can share with other people, and so many things that she has learned that she can help others along the way. So I hope this gives you a little bit of inspiration in your life. If you are going through a challenge that may seem really difficult and insurmountable now, think forward a little bit. How will you be able to use this experience to help others along the way? There's always that learning curve, right? We have to get through that. But then there comes a point where you go, okay, I'm able to take this information and now I can share it with other people. And I hope that you can find the challenge in that and find the determination to rise above that challenge. And with that, I hope you know that your purpose is in your story. Until next time, take care.
Celebrate your dreams, let them take flight, for you are a star, shining bright in every step you take. Let your